What is up, CSGs? In this video, we're going to talk about the Rockets destroying the Detroit Pistons. Thank God, because I could not have showed my face publicly if we had lost to the Pistons. And I'm going to do a updated report card, 31 games in for the Houston Rockets. How are guys looking? What are the goods? What are the bads? We're going to get into that and more right now. Tap in. Enjoy. The Rockets Chop Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basketball needs, for highlights, analysis, podcasts. We do it all here at the Rockets Chop Shop. Make sure you hit the like button on the videos that you watch if you enjoy them. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications from all the great drops that we have on the channel. Also, you can visit the Chop Shop merch store and get you some of the swaggiest gear in the Houston Rockets kingdom. And if you want, you can always support the channel directly through donations. And if you want, you can support us through our partnerships with our sponsors. The Rockets Chop Shop is made by fans, for fans, and we're going to keep rocking and keep dropping that heat.
This is something I know.
So your Houston Rockets avoided catastrophe by not losing to the Pistons. Now, I know it wasn't as bad as it could have been, right? Because the Toronto Raptors had defeated the Pistons earlier, so we didn't have to deal with the anxiety of watching us possibly be the team that helps Detroit break their, at that point, it would have been 30-game losing streak. So, we dodged that bullet. Then came in and took care of business. But the game started out a little shaky. I kind of knew that we should win the game. I thought that the bench lineups were the ones to be the deciding factors, but I was wrong because in the third quarter, Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun combined for 37 points. One of the most impressive offensive outputs I've seen from those two combined, and a lot of just back and forth synergy, two-man game going on there, which I think is very important for their young relationship going forward. Alp had 20 points in that quarter, was literally unstoppable. And it didn't start off until Wiseman got in the game because he was struggling against Duren. Duren's length seemed to be bothering him. I don't know why Sengun doesn't really utilize his leverage and strength when he's guarding or playing against these kind of taller centers than him. Now, Duren is strong. You heard Ryan Hollins point that out over and over, how strong he is, but he is big, but he's not that big. What I mean that he is big and like his stature is big, but he's not heavy. He's not a Jonas Valanciunas or a Jokic. He's not an Embiid. So he's not a big body like that. And I've seen Sengun move those types of bodies. And I think it's more of a effort. And I think he came out in the first half with poor effort. I think the length of Duren Paul's kind of got in his head a little bit, and it kind of deterred him from playing this game. You heard Coach Udoka speak about it in the press conference, telling him, stop trying to foul bait and just play your game. And once he started doing that, then everything just fell into place. For Sengun, there should be no reason any big man in the NBA should be an issue for him as far as strength. It's some advantages to being short. Y'all know I played football, and a lot of, I played offensive line. I'm about 6'2". I played center and guard. And, some of the toughest matchups I had were not big, tall defensive linemen, right? When I'm blocking defensive linemen, the worst ones to block are the guys that are like 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", stocky, and they get under your chin strap, right? They can use their leverage. They're low to the ground. It's hard to move them. They really bother you because you really can't use any force against them because you're pushing from above rather than from underneath. And I'm bringing that up to say that's how Sengun needs to play. Like, play low. My coaches say low man wins. If you play football, you've heard that. He is too big, too girthy as a player. He's too strong because you see his strength on the post-ups and the other parts of the court for him to let guys like Duren off the hook, who's probably 260, something like that. Get low when you're boxing out. Get low when you're trying to get rebounds. You have to get low like you're trying to score and use that girth, use that strength and bully ball. Bruise him up, hit him in the ribs. You got to get dirty with it. That's one thing Sengun could improve on, in his game compared to a guy like Sabonis, who's a smaller player than Sengun, but is a bruiser. But overall, just superstar mode for Alperen Sengun. Very impressive play, and he's been consistent with it. night in, night out. You know what you're going to get from the guy. And he's at the point where even when he does start slow, even though we hope for him to start fast, he gets it going. But the game, if you want to talk about agendas from the game, there's a lot of agendas that we could draw out of this game between the Detroit Pistons and the Rockets. Two teams on polar opposites of their trajectory as a franchise. Detroit is in a free fall right now, while Houston is on the up. And a lot of the stuff that people want to bring up is, a lot of the vets are the ones carrying the Rockets. That's cap, right? As we saw our young guys, and it was appropriate. And I've heard Pistons fans say this when they try to argue why they're struggling is, the Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks are the reason the Rockets are winning. Well, that's not true. And not just off of one game. This has been a consistent theme over this season. Now, this graphic isn't the end all be all, but you can see here when the Rockets win games in the 16 games that we've won, Jalen Green has been the leading scorer 6 out of those 16 times. Alperen Sengun 3 out of those 16, and Tari Eason has been the leading scorer twice. So 11 out of the 16 games that we've won, overwhelming majority of our games are led by guys that we consider part of our core 4. And, hopefully in the future, the core 6 would include Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson, leading us to victories as well. So this is definitely not true. One thing I will say that we have, in contrast to Detroit, are veterans that actually add to defense and add to kind of building that culture. Bogdanovich, terrible game from him. I mean, I don't like his shot selection. I think that he doesn't really add a lot. He's a player that you can use in a vacuum, but as far as building culture, that's not the vet you want to lean on. I think Detroit should have traded him when they had opportunities to get assets off of him. You look at some of the other players that are on their team, the vets really don't add much. A couple of the guys are hurt, but there's really just no direction right now. And I think in contrast to the Rockets, once again, my training wheels analogy that I always use, we have the perfect type of vets. Now, if James Harden was here averaging 25 and 12 on a nightly basis, then yeah, that argument about the Rockets being led by vets is going to be true. If you have Brook Lopez here with James Harden, they were doing that. But the guys that we have are guys that are low usage, low maintenance. A lot of times they don't take a lot of shots. Fred is going to get his because he's the point guard, but Dylan doesn't really do much. And there are games where Tari Eason is just flat out better than Dylan Brooks on the court. So, that argument is really not there. What we show is that our team has the perfect mix of youth and veteran experience to kind of help us reach that next level. And this has been the formula from day one, whether it's the Memphis Grizzlies when they popped off with having a good mixture of vets over there with Steven Adams and those guys that were over there helping them, whether it's the Golden State Warriors when they added David Lee and Iggy and some of those guys to come and join those young guys. Any of these teams that kind of changed their trajectory from being a bottom feeder team to being a team that's up and running, it comes off of vets. Even Orlando Magic, I know their starting 5 is mostly quote unquote young guys, but their whole bench is a bunch of vets. They have, different guys. Gary Harris is over there doing his thing. Joe Ingles is over there doing. So you cannot do this off of just having a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-olds. That's just bad roster construction. And in addition to that, it's not only just having vets and older guys that we could see with the Houston Rockets having Eric Gordon and Christian Wood. That really is not even the only factor. It's the right type of players. And I think that the Rockets are doing it right. We're doing it right. Our young guys are all promising. They're all budding. Jabari is showing flashes. Tari Eason is showing flashes. Jalen Green, even though he's been struggling as of late, he showed flashes of improvement over the last 3 games. And lastly, Alperen Sengun is the brightest spot for the Rockets right now. He is entering a very rare era of players, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later. But the game is really shows kind of the contrast between where the Rockets are as a franchise compared to the Pistons, who just a season ago we were on opposite ends. Now, just back to the game itself, there's really not much you could take from it. We just did what we had to do. Sengun was absolutely unstoppable. Coach Udoka called him basically the center of what they want to do offensively. So short of saying he's their hub, he's, coach, I understand Coach Udoka. He doesn't want to give guys a lot of credit because they're young and it goes to their head. So he tries to keep them humble, which I really appreciate from a coach, those Jedi mind tricks. But in some of the words that he was saying, you could tell what he was trying to say. Like, Sengun is the center of the Rockets system right now. He's their best player. And even though Fred VanVleet is their most important player as it relates to winning, when we're talking about just talent and what makes everything else go, it's Sengun. it is Sengun. Fred is too small to get in the paint and draw any type of gravity by himself. Jalen's shooting has been streaky. Jabari still needs to work on some things to self-create, and so on and so forth. But there is one player that demands the attention of the defense on the team, and is Alperen Sengun, which to me is why he should be an all-star this season. I think that when you compare him to some of the other centers in the NBA, even some people love Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren is a non-factor to me if he isn't being spoon-fed by a great guard. Those type of big men, in theory, are really, really good in the context of teams. But it just depends on where your team is right now. If I had a Steph Curry, give me Jalen Duren, right? If I had a Luka, I'll take a Jalen Duren. If I don't have that, give me a Sengun, right? And then I can find a lesser player on the perimeter to be able to play next to him and still be able to win a championship doing that. Or if I get lucky and one of these perimeter players actually becomes a top 15, top 20 player, now you're talking about a dynasty. So to me, it's harder to find a big man that is dynamic than to find a guard or a wing that is dynamic. It's really, really hard. The lob threats come a dime a dozen. So, it's really, really important for us to be able to understand what we're seeing, and to me, the impact of and the ramifications for the Houston Rockets. When you start building the roster out, you look at players like Jabari, you look at players like Jalen, even players like Fred. Having that hub, that center that's able to be that gravity and draw the defense in really makes their jobs easier. And the more dynamic they are on the perimeter, the more dynamic we are as a team. But great win. I know the Rockets have been struggling and they've been, pretty bad over the past few games. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I think this was a much needed win to start the new year. So right now, let's get to the updated grades from the 31 games into the season. So your Houston Rockets currently sit at 16-15, 31 games into the season. It's, above 500. I feel like we've left some games on the table over the past few games. I think Coach Udoka has left some games on the table. I'm not a big fan of some of his lineups use with some of the players he seems to have an affection for, with Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate. Now, Tate obviously had a good game against Detroit. I am not moved. I do not care. I feel like, to me, if a role player is hurting you, they're doing too much. Right? If a role player is being a ball hog, they're doing too much. If a role player is getting technical fouls and getting stupid fouls, that's benchable in my opinion. But I think at this point, it's a matter of need rather than preference with Coach Udoka. I mean, who else are you going to use? Which speaks to what Rafael Stone needs to do to get better players on this roster, because I feel like the Rockets are right there. Now, I'm going to steal a line from CJ Stroud on the Houston Texans after their win this past weekend. The time is now, bro. Like, you got to go now. Like, it's not next year. It's not 2 years from now. I'm not saying go all in as far as like, oh, let's go trade for a big player. But I think that if you see you have a team that's actually valuable, that's actually real, that has some chance to make a little bit of noise, I think that little bit of noise is the echoes that leads you to a lot of noise later on down the future. Is the parts of the rumblings that will go forward. So I think it's important. It is important for me, the Rockets, to make the playoffs or make the play-in. Not even the play-in. I think they need to make the playoffs. I think it's important in the development of their players to get that experience, because even though it's an anecdotal kind of thing, there's no stat to say this, but when teams are able to touch that grail of being in that leverage, those high leverage moments, that level of competition, it does kind of push them above the standards of what the other teams are. If the Rockets get in the playoffs this year, they're going to leave the Detroit Pistons of the world behind. We're going to get to that OKC level from last year, and I think it's very important. I'm saying all that to say that we need to make moves with that in mind. Not, like I said, the big move to win a championship, because we're not there yet. But to me, getting into the playoffs is very, very important in the steps the Rockets need to take. You cannot take any season for granted. And right now, we have a budding superstar in Alperen Sengun. We have young players that are turning into good level NBA players. And we have vets that have been there, done that. We have a championship level coach. Go for it. Never know. You might just be that Atlanta team that makes it to the conference finals off of, who cares what it is, a fluke or whatever you want to call it. But that changes your players' perception. And personally, I think we have better character players than the Trae Youngs of the world, because I think if our guys get that you give Jabari Smith a taste of a conference finals or a second round, a 7-game series, where even if they get beat up and bruised, what do you think their motivation into that summer is going to look like? So I think it's very important. So we need to do better building this roster out. That's on Stone. I'm going to see what he's going to do. He cannot cop out this season because the team is too good for him to cop out. So in the first 31 games, 16 and 15, we have an offensive rating of 114.2, which ranks 18th in the league. This has improved from 22nd in the last go round after 21 games in. Defensive rating is 111.3, which dropped from second to sixth. So we were at like 107. So our defense has been struggling. We've been getting cooked, right? We've been getting cooked and giving up, the past few games, a couple of 130s in there. That's not going to cut it. They have to be much, much better. And this is with and without Dylan. Just to me, it's a lot of the team quality that we're playing. Over the past few months in the season, we've played the same teams over and over again. So now we're getting new data coming in from different variants of teams. And I think our defense is going to level off. I still think they're a top 10 defense. I think they're probably going to stay there the rest of the season in that top 10 range. But, number 2 is a bit ambitious, but it was good for agenda reasons. Net rating plus 2.9, that has relatively been the same. I think it was 3.1 the last time that we did this video. So looking at the starting fives in this stretch of games, they have played a total of 902 possessions. This is our starting unit with DB there before the injury. 116 points per possession, which will rank 62nd in all lineups over 100 possessions. And defensive points per possession of 107.7, which will rank 34th for a net rating of plus 8, which will rank 33rd in all lineups over 100 possessions. So we've definitely dropped off. But we're still a plus 8, which is a winning lineup. So, there's been some ups and downs with some of our players, and this is withstanding Jalen Green having one of the worst stretches of his career in the month of December. So maybe this Jalen we're seeing over the past few games can help improve some of those numbers. Now, the replacement lineup that we've had over the past 1 or 2 games is the Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Jayshawn Tate, Jabari, and Sengun lineups. This is a bad lineup. It's on the year for the possessions they've had. It's 113 points per possession. On offense, which is, kind of mid, and then defense, 125.8 points per possession. That's not going to get it. A negative 12.4. Now, the Detroit game boosted that lineup a lot, right? Especially with Jalen and Sengun going off. But against real teams, this lineup usually loses. To me, the combination of Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and Jayshawn Tate is just too much for our team to handle, as far as with just different negative type players on the court at the same time. Not sure what coach's infatuation is with Tate and the starters. Obviously, if Tari Eason's in there, we're winning. I don't like it. I know you want to say use Tari off the bench, but Tari is a player that helps you get a fast start, right? So we don't have to play from behind and get out of a hole. With our offense struggling, to me, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I think I would start Tari if in the place of Dylan Brooks and bring worse guys off the bench, get a good start, and kind of stagger some of your good players throughout. But that's just me. So now I wanted to do a new exercise with our group to see with our report cards. So what I'm going to look at is for our guys within the last few games from the previous report card, which has been 11 games. What has been good within that stretch, what has been bad, like the good and the bad. So the last time we did a report card was 21 games in. So it's 31 games now. So 11 games ago. In the last 11 games, Dylan Brooks, basic stats, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. His splits are 51, 43, 81, which is really, really impressive for a player that really got almost kicked out of the league for being inefficient. On the year, Dylan is shooting 40% from 3. 40% from 3 for Dylan Brooks is really, really impressive on almost 5 attempts. You will take that, and he's been worth every penny that the Rockets have paid for him. Now, the good about Dylan, and this one I couldn't factor out for just the 11 games, but I thought it was interesting to note. The good thing that he's been doing is that his jump shots, 77% of them are threes. If you know Dylan Brooks in Memphis, one thing he loved to do was a lot of pull-up twos. And he was bad at those, right? He was taking a lot of mid-range jump shots that were bad and inefficient and just kind of messing up the offense. Here in Houston, he's bought in to what his role is. If Dylan isn't attacking the closeout, if he isn't posting up a smaller guard, he's shooting a 3. So 77% of jump shots being threes is very impressive. That's short of, that's damn near how Russ was here in Houston when Mike D'Antoni got him to stop taking 3-pointers and just driving the ball 90% of the time. So that's the good for him. The bad is the foul rate, right? Right now, he's fouling at a 5% clip on the possessions he's on the court, which will be in the 9th percentile in the NBA. So that's terrible. That means 91% of the league is better at not committing fouls than Dillon Brooks. This is a problem for him because not only does it impact his ability to stay on the court, it also puts our defense in poor positions and gets the other team at the line where they can score, slow the game down, and take us out of our rhythm, stop us from getting transition plays off of stops. There's a lot of effects that he has by being in foul trouble and fouling, and you cannot claim to be an elite defender if you're fouling as much. So hopefully that's something he can keep working on this year. He needs to find a balance between being aggressive and kind of picking when you want to be aggressive so we don't get in foul trouble and then have to sub in tape, right? Because that ends up hurting us. Fred VanVleet, over the last 11 games, basic stats, 18.5 points per game, 8 assists, 3.4 rebounds. 3.4 rebounds is pretty good for Fred. I'm not going to lie. His splits have been improved. Now, Fred on the year is struggling with his shooting on the floor, but the splits over the last 11 games, 44% from the field, 41.4% from three, 87.8% from the free throw line. Definitely way more efficient over the past few games. He's had a couple stinkers here and there, but overall, just way more efficient play from him. The good on Fred is that he is shooting 44.8% on catch and shoot threes. To me, the reason that's important in that stretch is because as Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun and Jabari Smith start to get more reps on ball, he is going to phase into that role where he is a spacer. And you can see the offense is really starting to pick up a little bit. It's not where it needs to be. There's still a lot of things that they need to do, right? There's a lot to be desired in the Rockets offense, but you can see it's becoming a little bit more dynamic with the guys scoring from different areas. Jabari being able to play off of Sengun, Jalen Green being able to play off of Sengun, damn near everybody playing off of Sengun and maximizing all their skills in that effort. Jabari getting into his spots in the post-ups. I know people are complaining he needs more touches. I think his touches are fine. He's coming off of injury from the last game, and he still has a lot of limitations in his game. And I love how they're bringing him along right now because he still gets his touches in the post. And in this offense, if you guys are going to know, there is no like, hey, this guy has to get it. Basically, it's based on the IQ of the players on the court and spotting mismatches. And Fred does dictate a lot of that as the point guard, but they also defer to Jalen a lot. So it's really going to be up to the players. And I wouldn't force a Jabari post-up if I get an Alp post-up or a Sengun and pick and roll one of our guards. I think that at this point, you have to pick it based on matchup. And if there's a matchup that Sengun or Fred is struggling on and Jabari has an advantage over his, then we have a problem if they're not giving them the ball. But you got to play it by, some people are very rigid in that, like give them to, like, bro, just watch the game, watch basketball, right? But the good, 44.8%, Fred being able to be that off-ball shooter is very important for us, not only for this season, but for next season. The bad, though, he's shooting 42% in the restricted area. That's damn near at the rim. That's not good, bro. And I made a tweet about this. Somebody I think Fred is like the worst player in the league at shooting at the rim or something like that, of guards or one of those NBA stats Twitter accounts put that out. And to me, he's a small guard. He's not athletic, not really explosive. He's not like stronger than a lot of players. He needs to just take a page from Chris Paul's book and just shoot that midi. And against Detroit, he was doing a lot of that, but he should only get to the paint if it's a transition or he has a clear advantage over the player and he thinks he can attack. When you see multiple bodies, bro, you can do the Steve Nash probe through the paint and come out on the other side. Don't attempt those shots. It's a turnover to me whenever he does that. Like, you're not going to make him. Learn to come off that screen with that pick and roll with Sengun. Most of the bigs playing him are in the drop. He just needs to pull up. Chris Paul has won a lot of games doing that, right? Has gotten a lot of playoff wins doing that. And Fred, at this point in his career, he just needs to understand that. And I hope the coaching staff is talking to him about that. Like, bro, you got to get to, so increase that mid-range frequency. Stop taking so many shots at the rim. You're shooting 42% at the rim, which the average in the league is damn near 60. That's terrible. So, but otherwise, I think he's been really good in the stretch. Jabari Smith in the last 11 games, 15.5 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, shooting splits. Check this out. This is Jabari, bro. 50% from the field, 42% from three, 86% from the free throw line. Jabari is a sniper. Sniper Bari is here. Call of Duty Bari, he is here. Give him all the badges he needs for the shooter that he is. The good about Jabari right now, he is shooting 45.9% on catch and shoot threes on damn near 4 attempts. This is major. I mean, this is Michael Porter Jr. level. This is Klay Thompson level. This level of shooting from a guy that tall, like I said in the 2 videos ago when I did the little 2-man combo with him and Sengun, that spacing is going to be so important for us. And you've seen where there are guys standing in front of him, he just shoots over them. And that's only going to keep getting better. So exciting times for the Rockets. Contrast this to where he was last season. 31% on catch and shoot threes. That is nasty. So that's damn near a 14% increase in your shooting on threes, on catch and shoots. I mean, he is a huge reason why we're being successful right now. And even though he started off the year rough, the corner that he's turned on both ends of the court is just really, really good. One thing that he's kind of slacked on over the past few games is the field goal defended at the rim percentage. He's given up 64.9% at the rim, and which is overall, is worse than his average on the season, which is 58%. Anything below 60 is about average. For Jabari, he needs to be probably below 56, 57%. The reason this is important for us as a team is because our pick and roll coverage is really predicated on bringing Sengun out to the perimeter and getting screened on. When he's backpedaling, he's not big enough to be a rim return. We're going to need guys on the perimeter, especially guys playing the weak side help, the low man, to be able to be rim protectors, right? That's the only way our defense is going to stay elite. You can see we struggle against teams that run a lot of high pick and roll with elite guards that are able to make that lob. Jabari needs to be there to be able to not only contest, to tag those big men, but also when Sengun is in the action or when the main creator is attacking whoever the screener is being screened, coming off that weak side, just like he does when he rebounds, to be able to be a rim contestant. Also, when he is, with the weak side help, stop just standing there with your hands up, bro. Like, go up and block him. That's for him and Sengun. But rim field goal percentage has been struggling for the Rockets this stretch of games. I think that's a big reason our defense has struggled, because we were pretty elite to start the year at that. And we just need to be better at that, more conscientious of defending the rim. You can't do it by relying on Alperen Sengun. That's never going to be his strength. He's been doing a really good job this year, but over the past few games, he's been getting cooked. Jabari's been getting cooked. Tari's been getting cooked. And those are our tallest players. Londale isn't anything. Jeff Green, So those 3 guys, Jabari, Tari, and Sengun, have to be much better at the rim, and being having more effort. And a lot of that starts with their positioning and where they need to be. But not really much that you can complain about Jabari. I think he's been great. Jalen Green over the last 11 games, 15.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, 3.3 assists. Really impressed with his rebounding. He is really, really going up and getting it. The splits are ugly, 38% from the field. Now, what you love to see is that 38% from 3. And I think if he can be a 37, 38% three-point shooter with more strength, better handles over the next year or two, that field goal percentage is going to go up to the mid-40s. 82% from the line, which is also an improvement. I think he's in the 70s most of the season. The good about him right now, his paint touch field goal percentage is at 66%. And it was at 55 most of the season. Over the last 10 or 11 games, up to 66%. And one of the key things that he's doing, he's finishing on his cuts. So how you get a paint touch is when you get a touch in the paint. Basically, a player gives you a pass while you're in the paint. A lot of those are coming off of cuts for him, which he gets about one or so a game. Being able to finish on cuts really, to me, gets him going. And whether it's a cut or a transition, just finishing on the easy stuff. In the past few games, he's been shooting really well on his catch and shoot threes. On above the break threes, Jalen Green is shooting like 50% right now in the last 3 games, which, small sample size, but you can kind of see some of the inklings of him turning the corner. He's finishing out games, even though he still has a lot of issues and deficiency, and a lot of his success right now is based on just hot shooting. But hit your open shots, it's a big start, right? I know it sounds simple and stupid, but he's hitting his open shots and making his layups. Let's start there, and then we can build up from that. You got to start somewhere. The bad for him in that stretch, minus 4.8 net rating. He has a defensive rating of 122 in that stretch, which is not great. No buenos, right? He is the only negative net rating on the team in that 11-game stretch. So even though he's had a good 3 games, those past 7 or 6 before that, as you guys know, we've talked ad nauseum. What's wrong with Jalen Green? He's been pretty bad. But I think I like what I'm seeing. It seems like he's starting to find his role a little bit more. In the first quarter of the Pistons game, only 5 shot attempts. People were complaining. If you watch the game, he didn't take the shots. He had opportunities to. He was picking the spots. And then as the game went along, as he started feeling it, he started going. One thing I loved about that game, his effort never stopped on the rebounding and on defense. So progression, you got to take the micro progressions with him. And I think he's been doing a fantastic job over the past few games. Let's just stack good games over and over, and let's see if we can turn that corner like Jabari did. And lastly, Alperen Sengun, basic stats, 22.6 points per game, 9 rebounds, 4.6 assists, so damn near 22, 10, and 5. Splits, 55% from the field, 29 from 3, 84 at the free throw line, which to me is very impressive. Very, very impressive. Ever since he changed his free throw routine, he has been much better. I wish he had figured this out earlier. I've said it before, Alperen Sengun is an all-star level center. I think he's one of the better centers in the NBA. And one thing that tells me that this dude is a star. Now, this to me is the star's mark. The good for him, he is number 7 in this 11-game stretch in the NBA in personal fouls drawn, 6.1. Number 7 in the entire league. And the best part about this, not only is he getting to the free throw line, he's also shooting 84%. Here's the list of players that are on the list of personal fouls drawn. Giannis, number 1, Bam Adebayo, Trae Young, Joel Embiid, SGA, Luka, and then Alperen Sengun. That's a nice little list if you ask me, right? All the makings of a superstar. When you can't guard a player and you got to foul him, that causes you to bend the defense, right? And to me, this is one of the most important markers I look at for players that are going to be offensive engines is how much do they get to the free throw line. And Sengun being number 6 in the NBA in that 11-game stretch kind of meets the eye test of him taking over games and forcing a lot of these big men into foul trouble. The bad for Sengun right now is the rebounding, right? And even though he's averaging 9.1 rebounds, dude should be really averaging about 15. He should be averaging about 15 rebounds. The reason why, one, our team is short, right? You're the lone big man on the team. A lot of the things is, yes, I know he is usually boxing out players to allow his teammates to get rebounds, and they do rebound as a team. If you dig down and look at the contested defensive rebounds, so this is when he is in the vicinity of a rebound and there's other players around him, he is at 21.4% on defensive rebounds, which is bad for a center. He's 6th on the team behind guys like Tari, Jabari. That should not be the case. And a lot of that is because of his positioning in the paint. He has to do his work early, right? Box out like you're posting up. You can't just let players push you under the basket and just snag rebounds over you. Even though, like I said, he's not the biggest player in the world, but he's strong. Use that strength to move guys out of the paint and be able to push them out so they can't use their length over you. Give yourself more room to be able to go up for those contested rebounds. Use that big body. That's a weapon. Some of the best rebounders in the NBA, Charles Barkley, Dennis, is just body positioning. It's not about height or anything like that. Tari Eason is one of the best rebounders on our team, and he's what, 6'8", 6'9"? So Sengun should be better. Now, I'm going to give him a little credit because I understand it is tiring, but that also speaks to the conditioning aspect of it. When he gets older, as he's working out these summers, his body needs to be able to rebound and post up and take the bruising and bumps that come with playing that style of basketball it does. It is not easy. Shout out to Domantas Sabonis, because even though we say, oh, Sengun's better than him, one thing that dude does, he gets to work in the paint. And to me, that's why he's an all-star, because he is a tough player that throws that weight around. Sengun is bigger and will be stronger than him. He needs to be better on that. On the contested offensive rebounds, 59.5%. That's a little better, 3rd on the team. To me, he should be 1st and 2nd in both of those marks on this team with all these midgets we got. That should be his thing. The rebounding will take his game. If he was averaging 22, 15, and 5, there would be no discussion about whether he's an all-star or not. So that's, to me, that's the next level. And that's going to come with, even though it sounds easy, rebound more, it's going to be hard. Because those fights to box players out, to push big guys out of their position, it's like another offensive possession. So being able to play 2 ways, it got to come with that. And for him, it's not only being able to stay in front of guys in 2 ways or contest at the rim, it's getting those rebounds. So that's where, to me, he's lacking right now. He could be a lot better. So overall, I think the team is, they've been kind of flailing a little bit, but they're kind of just steadying the ship right there. Most of the games were within reach for us to win. We haven't just been destroyed, the whole season. Most of the games are, like I said, we have like a play here, a substitution there that could have tilted the game. I want them to keep just figuring this out until reinforcements come via the trade deadline. And I'm really excited to see what moves they make. Once again, we need shooting. We need another backup big man, and we need ball handling off the bench. Shout out to Amen Thompson. It was Twins nights for the Pistons and the Rockets. Amen had a great game. You really get to see kind of a glimpse of what he could be. I love his aggression, just the way he plays the game. His passing, man, is just special. He is the lone passer on the team that has the velocity on some of those driving kicks that you see from the Lukas, the LeBrons. The sky's the limit for him. Cam Whitmore with the crazy dunk over Marvin Bagley. Cam is a scoring machine. They're still just there. I'm wondering if after the All-Star break, they're going to let them play out. I don't think so. I think a lot of people have the idea of the bad team build where you kind of sit on players before trade deadline, and once you make your trades, you move them out. When you're a good team, the rotations don't change that much. Usually what's going to happen, the players they bring in via trade are going to take the spots of the players they sent out. So I think that this year, what we see from Cam and Amen is what we're going to see from Cam and Amen. And, that's okay because you're seeing progression in some of the mistakes they made early on in the season. They're not there anymore. Cam Whitmore is moving the ball, getting off the rock, not being a ball stopper. Those are important things I wanted to see from him. So as they kind of grow and improve in those aspects, I think his role may get a little more defined as he does some of these good things. I think Amen is going to get back to where he was at the start of the season as one of the first guys off the bench. But he played a great game. I don't know if the Rockets got the better twin, but definitely looked like it last night, right? But, we have a slate of games coming up over the next 4. Let's see. We have Brooklyn, which will not be an easy task, but I think we should win because they don't have a savant guard, right? They have a bunch of guys that like to play in isolation, which plays into our hands. I think that's going to be a win for us. The Timberwolves is going to be a big challenge. That's a challenge in multiple arenas for our team. That's going to be tough. That is going to be tough. Milwaukee is obviously, you guys know, is going to be tough. And the Heat, another tough team for us to play. Good games coming up. I say we go 2-2 over that stretch. But we'll see, man. But y'all let me know. What was your favorite? Let me ask y'all this for the question. I always ask about what's your favorite part of the game. Which agenda do you think was answered the most last night against the Pistons? Was it Sengun over Jalen Green? Was it Cade versus Jalen Green? Was that agenda answered? Was it Asar versus Amen? Or was it Udoka versus Steven Silas or Rockets versus Pistons? You pick your agenda. I'm sure there's like a million more. I feel like we're intertwined with the Pistons in multiple ways. Which agenda is yours that you love that was supported last night after that win? Which one are you pushing? Let me know in the comments and in the chat. Happy New Year's to everybody. Happy New Year's to your family. Hopefully this new year brings in great things for everybody. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that.